What's so interesting for me as a matchmaker is that I can see when I'm giving dating advice and coaching, I can see exactly the couples and relationships when they split up, where one of them is going to zombie the other one. And in this episode, the lexicon of love.
Today we're going to talk about all the words that are associated with dating, some of which are new to me, some of which are old hat, but it changes all the time, which is what makes it so fascinating. One of the first words, which I'm of a slightly older generation. We always use the word charisma, but I gather Riz is now a thing. RIZZ.
It is. In fact, it was the Oxford Word of the Year in 2023. They decided that Riz encapsulated the entire year, which I'm not entirely sure about. But it's this sense of someone who possesses Riz. And to possess Riz means that you are attractive to the opposite sex, or perhaps even the same sex. But the concept of Riz is that people find you attractive, people think that you are charming, and there's a bit of a sense of being a bit seductive in there too. But the concept of Riz, I think it's meant to be a bit more than old-fashioned charm. I think it's the ability to charm and encourage someone and woo them with your wiles. So Riz doesn't sound great though, does it?
No, I know it's a bit. Okay, so if somebody pays you a compliment that have Riz, you take that. That's definitely a compliment. You need to go with it.
I think I don't know. Is it a pejorative term? I think it's meant to mean someone with a bit of style. They've got a bit of Riz, and I think it's not really a set archetype. It seems that someone can have Riz without necessarily knowing they have Riz. Someone that might be kind of a little bit atypical might have Riz. It's just that ability to attract people to you in a romantic way rather than in a platonic sense.
I don't know why, but Boris Johnson is coming to mind. I'm not sure. If he's a bit approaching anything to do with romantic, maybe we'll scrimmage.
Well, fair choice. Boris Johnson, is he a man with Riz? I think we'll have to put that out there. We'll have to ask for answers on a postcard. Is Boris Johnson the definition of a man with Riz? I'm not sure. He's definitely the definition of a man who doesn't appear to have Riz, but I think there seems to be some news reports to the contrary. So he might be the guy.
But talking of Boris, the next one might be quite interesting for Boris. So it's a word that I have not been familiar with. Situationship. What is that?
Ooh. Yes, so a situationship is, it's quite a complex one. So a situationship is where you are going out on dates, you are potentially sleeping together, you have maybe been doing this for quite some period of time. Could be 6 months, could be a year. It's called a situationship because it's never been defined. But interestingly, the reason it's never been defined is often because one of the two parties doesn't want it to be defined. So it's in the interests of that person to not define what's going on. Why? Well, as long as the situationship's going on, it means that they're able to keep their options open. So a situationship quite often is either something that one of the parties would love to change, or even can be where one of the parties doesn't know that it's even a situationship, where when they say after 6 months or 8 months or 9 months, I really would love to have met your family, or, I'd love to know if one day we might get engaged, or how do you feel about getting married? And they say, oh, no. No. This is just, we're friends. We're so, and they start to redefine what's going on. And usually people know if they're in a situationship because it's never been discussed. It's never come up as a topic. And that is generally because one of the two doesn't want it as a topic, because they actually don't want to make the commitment. So if you are not sure if you're in a situationship or not, it usually means you are. And if you don't want to be in a situationship, it's really good to define it early. And the way to avoid a situationship, if what you're looking for is monogamy in a long-term, happy, healthy relationship, is to say to someone early on, I want to talk about who we are and where we're going and what this is. And if you do have that chat, I know we've talked about this a little bit before, but if you do have that chat and someone wants to be with you, they're going to dive in, feet first. And if you don't want to have the conversation, if you're nervous about having the conversation, usually it's because you have a gut feeling, that kind of pit of your stomach thing, that maybe the person doesn't see you the way you see them. So it's much better to have that chat, have that conversation, and then be free to go on and meet the person who wants you forever, not just for a few months. Which probably leads you on to cuffing. Is that going to be the next one?
Go on to cuffing, because that's a new one on me. Well, it sounds like something you'd I don't know. What?
So there's this sense of cuffing season, and there's some people see it as a negative, some people see it as a positive. I tend to be slightly on the negative side about it, but the idea is that when it comes, you've gone through autumn, you're coming in towards the winter months, and you think to yourself, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to have a relationship with someone that we can sit and have a hot chocolate in front of the fire, those country walks in the snow, or with the kind of the falling of the leaves? Wouldn't it be great to have a relationship to keep me warm over the winter? Which is basically what it is. And the idea of cuffing season is this kind of season where people think, not quite, I want to go into hibernation, but they do think, what I want to do is find someone to enjoy the winter months with. But then, of course, comes in the danger that when it hits spring, time for some fresh faces, time for some new blood. And that's the kind of danger zone when it comes to cuffing and cuffing season. It's called a season for a reason.
That is so interesting. I thought of that before, but I can kind of see you wanting somebody to snuggle down with. It's almost sort of going into hibernation mode.
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly where it kind of came from, this sense of wanting to have someone for that period of time. And so if you do meet someone, autumn, wintry months, find out, make sure they're in it for the long haul and not just to someone to keep them warm.
But also think about what you want and what you're looking for, and whether you're actually looking for somebody just for the winter, or maybe you're looking at with the right kind of vision in your head for something, going to be, have longevity.
Well, that's a really good point. And exactly as you said, don't just worry about what they're thinking. What do you want? And what are your motivations? Are you also thinking, gosh, it would be nice to ride through this period of time with someone else? You're absolutely right, Carole. And to think, what do I want? And am I being motivated by, gosh, I really would just like someone for now because I'm lonely and it's dark and it's getting cold and I've got this kind of primal need to be connected to someone else? And do I really like this person, or are they just fulfilling a need for a period of time? Not to say that that's wrong, the other concept of fulfilling a need at a certain period of time, but you're right. Think about whether this is the right decision for you, or whether it's just someone to tide you over. And sometimes that's what you need, is someone to tide you over for a period of time. It's kind of a judgment-free zone. But you're right. Think it through. Think about whether or not you're being motivated by the winter or motivated by them.
But again, it friendship rather than a relationship. So but I love that one. So the next word I wanted to ask you about is beige. Now, I love beige as a colour. I am a very sort of neutral dress, kind of chocolate and beige. But I gather that beige is not necessarily a good word when it comes to relationships.
This is a good one again. So we, a lot is said about red flags, a lot is said about green flags. So the red flags of dating would be, perhaps things on an online profile, or something someone says or does in a date that would be considered a red flag. Red flag meaning, no-go zone. Stop right here. The other person has there's been a behavior or an action that means that they're a definite no. And of course, we know green flags, which are behaviors that would point out to us that there was something about that person that was worth pursuing. There was a green flag that said, gosh, this person's going to be solid, reliable, dependable, a great person to be with long term. And of course, there's beige. And beige I loved it when I first heard this one. So beige is really about, if we're talking initially on online dating, profiles that just say things like, we won't tell people we met on Hinge. We won't tell people, we'll tell people we met in the supermarket, not on Tinder, or, fill in the blank for online dating company. And it could also be, and I'll explain why that's mildly annoying in a second, but it could also be things like, when sometimes you get three questions you can answer. It's, I love beer. My ideal date would have beer. My ideal day would have beer. And it's really in online dating, the beige flags are just things that make dating so much harder, that make online dating so much more annoying. It's the things you just don't have to say. It's farther than, red flag, danger, green flag, incredible. Beige flags are kind of, really? Did you have to write that?
Yeah.
Did you have to say that?
It's things that are slightly off-putting, but they're not deal
Not deal breakers at all. And even when it comes to red and green flags, there's sometimes some disagreement on those. I heard recently people think, a guy posing with a fish is a red flag. A guy posing with the fish is a green flag. He's got passions. He's got hobbies. He probably does catch and release, for anyone out there who's talking about the cruelty element. But a guy, I think a chap that goes off and spends all Saturday, Sunday fishing and enjoying himself and lets you go and do what you want to do, I think sounds incredible. I've never met a nasty angler. I'm not quite sure if that's a saying, but I certainly haven't. So for me, posing with the fish is a great thing. Yeah, great. Some people see that as very much a red flag. I'm not one of those people. I wouldn't encourage that. But when it comes to beige flags, it's just something that's a bit annoying. You just didn't have to write that. Can't believe I found myself in this dating app. Well, you've got 500 words or 500 characters, however many it is. Don't waste half of them by moaning. And I think that's the beige flag. You're still going to date with them, but they're moaning from the get-go. We don't have time for that. So yeah, those would be beige flags.
Okay, let's move on to breadcrumbing and benching. Is that the same thing? Two words for the same thing?
So breadcrumbing is really about feeding someone's ego. And so breadcrumbing is when you will get a little message through. So you think, oh, that's great. They're interested. You write a few messages back. You maybe get something back, and then you don't hear anything. And then a week later, get another little thing. Oh, yes, I'm interested. And so it's someone who does just enough to keep you interested, but not enough to actually get into a relationship with. And you can even be breadcrumbed by someone that you're seeing. So you could, before you actually commit to a relationship, so you could be going on a date, you have a brilliant time, you have a great night out, you maybe message and don't hear anything. And you think, oh gosh, I think they're not interested in me. But then a week later, a bit too long, but not enough to decide you don't want to see them again, they send you a lovely message. Oh, I had a brilliant time. You think, oh, they were busy. And you start to make excuses. They were busy at work, or they were busy with their family. They've got kids, So you're always making up these things in your head that would make it reasonable, but they do just enough to keep you hanging so that you keep feeding their ego. But not enough that you're ever going to get into a relationship. And also there's this thing that happens in our brains when we get just enough but not enough, which of course is a toxic relationship. But what happens is we get this sense of fear, we get this sense of being scared or worried or stressed. Our body's in stress. And unfortunately, that sensation in our body, and we're so terrible with our bodies really knowing what's going on in our brains and what's really happening with the chemicals. What happens is we can, unfortunately, confuse that with the sensation of falling in love. We can confuse it with so many different things, which is why it's often used. And also what can happen is by just getting little bits of contact, you think, well, if I work harder, if I look better, if we go to better venue, if I am more positive, more, they will maybe give me more. It's only because they don't know enough about me, or they haven't really got to know me, that this is happening. It's not going to change. You'll always be breadcrumbed. The person that's doing this is breadcrumbing 20, 30 different people at the same time. And of course, it makes it easy for them if they're only contacting someone once every couple of weeks to do it. So we want to avoid breadcrumbing. But benching is not something that I've used as a term before. So you obviously know more about benching than I do. Tell me, and we'll try and compare it as a term.
No. I genuinely don't. I've heard it being used along with breadcrumbing. So maybe let's try and think what it might be. So breadcrumbing is when you throw somebody little morsels.
Yeah.
Maybe benching is when you're kind of you're sitting somebody on a bench and kind of forgetting about them for a while.
I think that's exactly what it sounds like. I think benching sounds like they kind of or it could be called shelving. We'll do a brand new one called shelving. And that's where you basically take someone, you have a lot of fun with them, like you might do with a toy, and you put them back on the shelf. So I would like to have shelving be the words of 2024. We've still got some time. But no, I think, in fact, so I would like shelving to be the word of the year. I think that sounds pretty good. We take our toy, we play with them, we have fun with them, we tell them how much we love them, we give them hugs, we give them cuddles, we play with them, we get little set out, we have little meals with them, we tell them stories, we create a life together, a fantasy life together. And then when we've had our fun, we put them back on the shelf until we next want to bring them out to play. But it doesn't mean that we're taking them everywhere we go. We're simply sitting them on a shelf until we feel a little bit bored, and we take them down from the shelf again. And that is exactly what they're doing. So this is a brand new term, coined now, shelving.
So the next term that everyone will be familiar with, ghosting.
Oh, ghosting. There's a lot of misinformation out there about ghosting. I'll start off with, there's a lot of misinformation out there about ghosting, and I will start off with the meaning of ghosting. So ghosting is actually the concept where you are in a long-term relationship with someone. We're talking 5-6 months doesn't sound long, but 5-6 months at least you are dating, you know who they are, you've met their family, you've met their friends, you are in a relationship with someone. And then they disappear. That was the original ghosting. And I, in fact, have a friend who was dating someone for over a year who ghosted them. Literally disappeared. And we found out later some of the reasons why. They weren't hospitalized, nothing serious had happened to them. But if you're in that relationship for a long time and someone simply vanishes, you start to panic. You're calling hospitals, you're calling friends, you're calling family, you're trying to work out what's happened to them. And she did. She managed to get a hold of someone after a number of days who said, yep, fine, just doesn't want to be in contact. An actual relationship. So that was the original meaning of ghosting, was someone that you think you've spent a significant amount of time with, and they decide they don't want to see you again. It's now a misused term. Ghosting is now used very liberally, sprinkled on top of the dish that is dating. And now it's used, you go on one date, you send a thank you message and you don't hear back. I was ghosted. No, you went on a date, they weren't interested, move on. Same with second date, third date, fourth date. You don't owe anyone an explanation, I don't think. If you don't, it's polite, it's courteous, it's good manners. We want to be mannerly when we're dating. And I think if we're dating with intention, we should be mannerly. We should think of the other. But you're not owed an explanation if after 2 or 3 dates someone doesn't want to see you again. And people say, I was ghosted, this person's awful, they mistreated me, we went on 2 dates and they didn't write back. And you don't need an explanation. You've been on 2 dates, it isn't the right fit, and you're never going to persuade that person that you are the right one for them. Because if you're the right one with them, they wouldn't have let you go. You'd be going on a third, fourth, fifth date, and you'd decide to make a commitment together. That's the genuine. The ghosting was, like the ghost, an apparition that appeared before you, disappeared too. It's so I think I like to stick to the original meaning of ghosting, which is long-term relationship, at least 6 months. You're definitely committed. You're definitely dating. You know them as far as you're concerned intimately, and they disappear, because that is gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching. That is therapy stuff. Not a couple of dates and they don't reply to your text message.
However, there is the flip side to that, which is a word that I learnt actually in the office from the younger people in the office. It made me roar with laughter, which was zombieing. So this after being ghosted, when somebody comes back from the dead and suddenly gets in touch with you again, you zombied, and that was brilliant.
You've been zombied. And that's exactly right. It is someone's come back from the dead. And, 9 times out of 10, the problem with zombies is people don't recognize the zombie. They think, oh, yes, that person who was kind and considerate, and we had a brilliant fun time on those dates, they've reappeared. This is perfect. And whatever explanation, as I'm saying, 9 times out of 10, when you get that explanation from the zombie, oh, I just was going through a bad period of time, or I was under a lot of stress, there was a lot of work, something happened, blah, 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 blah. They're all stories. They're all figments of the imagination. And it's kind of a more dramatic form of breadcrumbing, but they've come back again as a zombie, and both men and women fall for it every time. I've given myself a 10% window where they don't. And they say, yes, yes, no. And if we're explaining it to all of their friends, yeah, no, it made so much sense. When it was explained to me, what had gone on. And the friends are just standing around thinking, you're absolutely delusional. This person disappeared on you, has reappeared from the dead, and you definitely need to keep them as far away from you as possible. So advice, if you get the zombie reappearing and you know what's going on and you're savvy enough to realize what's happening, I often do get asked, what do I write? What do I say? How do I deal with the zombie? Best response, silence. Do nothing. Do not respond. Do not acknowledge. And if you clearly haven't done it yet, block them. Nothing has changed. Nothing has altered. There hasn't been some dramatic thing going on in their life. They were not interested in you. Otherwise, they'd be dating you, and they're not interested in you now. They've obviously had someone else in their life who they had a bit of fun with, who they're going to zombie in 6 months' time or a year's time. And what's so interesting for me as a matchmaker is that I can see when I'm giving dating advice and coaching, I can see exactly the couples and relationships when they split up, where one of them is going to zombie the other one. I can see it coming. And so I always warn the person when they're desolate and it's really been heartbreaking and something terrible. They really feel this was the right person. It's obviously not if they left them. And I say, look, I don't know if this is going to be good or bad news, but this person is going to come back. And I'm telling you this because when you've got over what they've done to you, I want you to remember how they made you feel. I want you to remember what they put you through. And someone who loves you and cares for you and is passionate about you would never set out to hurt you. And no matter what the zombie says when they come back, they knew what they were doing. And if they didn't know, they just didn't care. And that's not the type of person you want to build a lasting, loving relationship with.
Yeah, I think that who is in the word, it's zombie with his mean, scary. I think that you need to follow your gut feeling on that one, isn't it? I think that never a very, very if it is a good idea to go back.
Yeah, very rarely, very rarely. And perhaps if you asked Catherine and William in our royal family, because he did split up with her for quite a period of time, and then go back together again, they might be the exception rather than the rule to a situation where someone is split up with and then reappears again and is the right person for you.
But in that situation, that I could find it a bit more not forgiving, but understanding. You're coming up to a big decision in your life. Do I want to spend the rest of my life with it? Maybe that's more forgivable, that you break off for a bit and get your headspace, realize how much you love them, how much you miss them, and yes, it's you're taking a huge risk because that person might not take you back. But when you go back, you're going back with an absolute 100%. This is the person I want to be with for the rest of my life.
And it also, interestingly, it gives the person you're going back to a huge amount of power. It doesn't sound like it, but it does. Because if in the case of William and Catherine, as we've discussed, he came back to her, which we know, or we believe to be the case, she has a huge amount of power because he will have come back, or anyone in their situation will have come back saying, I've made a massive mistake. I have spent that time realizing the mistake that I've made, and I'm here to fix it. I cannot live the rest of my life without you. That's the kind of conversation you would need to have because the person will have their barriers up, their shutters will be up. You left me, you hurt me, this was painful, this was destructive to what I believed was our relationship and believed what was happening between us. And so they're actually in such a strong position because they're in such a strong bargaining position. So when they come back, they say, I'll think about it, but under the following conditions. And they are the ones that can set the stage because they have to take off the armor in order to take the person back. So it can be quite a good, powerful way to do things, providing you know the person is earnest and is being truthful, and you know it's not a kind of flash in the pan. You know they have long-term ambition and desire for the relationship. And I think certainly if you've dated them for quite a period of time and they come back, they would have to give you quite a high level of commitment in order for you to decide it was the right thing. And there will have been a breaking point. As you say, perhaps it was, whether they were going to get engaged or not, whether they were going to get married, what the timeline. It could be that in order for the relationship to move forward, there would need to be that commitment at that point. That thing that meant that we both went our separate ways can be resolved in a way that is beneficial and is something that we both want. You have to both want it. Otherwise, yeah, it's not going to work.
And hats off to it, how it was, we saw it working up track. She didn't go into a little hole and sob into her friend's shoulder. She got her kit on, she went to a roller disco, she was va-va-voom, she was fantastic. It's kind of like, I don't need you, I'm amazing. I don't need you to make my life complete. I can have fun without you. I'm going to get out there, and I think you have to applaud if that's the way I remember it. But you absolutely have to applaud that behavior because you're feeling a little bit rubbish. Your confidence has been knocked, but you put your makeup on, you put your outfit on, and you get out there and you have fun.
She was an astonishing example of what you must do given that situation. But as you said, it was even worse than that for her. Every time she stepped out the house, paparazzi, the photographs, and in those days they were even more ruthless than they are today. And so everywhere she went, she was hounded, she was photographed, she had no freedom. So she can't walk around with, as we say in Scotland, her face tripping her. She has to go out there and she has to put on a smile. So and you said earlier, she wasn't at home crying. She probably was at home crying, as anyone would be in that situation where you think you've found the love of your life and they say to you, at that point, I don't think we are. So she will have been at home sobbing. But as you say, when she went out, she put a brave face on, and she probably had a hugely supportive family and hugely supportive friends who said, right, we're going to get you out, we're going to go to things, you're going to have fun. And that must be so hard if you're going through grief and you're also having to face the world's media, who are now even more hooked on the story because of this split up, what's going to happen next. And it would never have really gone away, even if they hadn't gone back together. It would have been who she's dated next, who her next boyfriend is, who she got married. It would have carried on, but she did really well. And exactly as you've said, if you do find yourself in that situation, you do want to do a Bridget Jones. You want to curl up on the sofa with your duvet and a tub of Ben and Jerry's, and why not? I roundly applaud that too. I think you've got to spend time in an introverted way healing. It is important to spend some time and not feel guilty about it. You just don't want to wallow for too long, and I think if you do find yourself carrying on month after month and it's really, really taking too long, then try and find some help, some outside help to help you move on. Heartbreak is really awful. They call it heartbreak for a reason. You can literally break your heart from physically. When I say literally, physically break your heart from this happening. And it is terrible to go through, but we want to also think of the positives of love. And let's see what the next term is in the lexicon of love that you would like to talk about.
This again, the reality check. Groundhogging, which I understand is when someone repeatedly chooses the same sort of partner but expects different results. I mean, haven't we all seen that happen over and over again?
Right, exactly. So groundhogging. This is such a, and I don't even know, where did they even get the term from?
And I think that is
it. It has to come from Groundhog Day, that incredible Bill Murray film. It's one of my favorites. And so now this is the term that I wish I'd invented now, because it really is one of my favorite films. So if you haven't seen it, and I don't want to ruin it, but you do learn pretty early on what's going to happen. But Groundhog Day, where every single day he wakes up and it's the same day. And I'm not going to tell you what the lesson is there, because it's such a profound lesson to learn. It's kind of a lesson for life. I'm not going to tell you, because in case you haven't watched it yet, I'm not going to ruin it for you. But there's some really profound lessons. And the idea is he's living the same day over and over again. And that's the same, as you said, with groundhogging relationships. And it's having a certain life or a certain way of living that all you're trying to do is slot a person into your life and to pick the same partners who caused the same chaos in the past. So it's an idea that if you keep picking partners who do certain things or behave in certain ways, that you just keep repeating that pattern. You don't learn that actually, in order to be successful in love, I need to do something slightly different. And it's the idea of hanging on to something that feels safe and familiar and warm, but actually is pretty destructive for you in your search for love. So yeah, groundhogging, picking the same person over and over again and not learning that it's just not going to work for you.
And one that while on it's that algorithm, don't always pick the same look, the same, likes all for it. Choose, even if you don't think it's right for you, go for something, see where it'll take you.
Exactly, Carole. It's so important to take a risk when you're dating. And I don't mean take a risk, meet someone sit in the back of their motorbike without a helmet on. I'm talking about taking a risk in terms of the kind of person you pick. It's so important. And especially, my clients, come to me with their bucket list of things that they want and things that they desire. And it doesn't leave much room for spontaneity, for picking someone that you might not normally pick. And that kind of is one of the keys to finding love, is not having to set an idea, not trying to recreate something that happened in the past with the next partner. There's nothing worse than hearing that the previous partner has gone off and done the same things that you did before. So they're not only picking the same type of partner, they're doing the same types of activities and some kind of bizarre recreation of the way that they like things to be or had experienced with you. It is good. I think that's really good advice, Carole. The idea of pick someone a little bit different. Don't have this laundry list. Love is not a list of the things that you think you need and want. People are really bad at knowing what's actually good for them. Like, really terrible at knowing. So, yeah, pick the person that you maybe need rather than the person that you possibly want.
The next one, Gillian, is pocketing.
I have no idea.
I'm so pleased I've caught you out just because I've found something that you haven't heard. The love guru, and I'm going to teach her something. Okay, pocketing. This is quite clever. Pocketing is keeping the relationship a secret from family and friends.
Oh, yes. Yes. So
something you need to watch out for, isn't it?
The secret to knowing if you're being pocketed is actually, you know if you're being pocketed. Oh, this is great. So this is different to shelving, the one that I invented earlier on, or we invented together. So shelving, you're on the shelf, you're on display, but you're just taken out occasionally. Pocketing, you're there. You're going around everywhere. You exist, which hopefully means you're in the pocket, which hopefully means you're also in the heart. But for some reason, you're not in the Facebook relationship status. You're not you're not appearing on the Instagram post. And worse of all, you've become aware, oh, this is great. You've become aware that you're sitting watching a beautiful sunset. They take a lovely pic of the sunset. You agree together. Doesn't it look wonderful? And when you check social media later, they've posted it talking about the wonderful sunset and, live, love, laugh, hashtag. No mention of you. You don't exist. You've been pocketed.
Or the thing that would been with somebody for a while and they're going for lunch with their parents and lunch with their sister, and there's no question and no invitation for you, and that must be quite weird as well.
No invitation for you. They tell you, they tell you all about their nephew's turning 5. There's going to be this lovely big party. They get you involved in picking the presents. Or they're having this lovely dinner and they talk to you about the menu, what's going to be on the menu when this group of friends comes around. And you're talking about the menu, you talk about the starter, the main course, you suggest some decor. They're so excited about this dinner party they're hosting with this big group of 15 friends. You know all about the menu, the times, but then you realise they've never actually mentioned to me that I'm meant to be there. And it becomes abundantly evident. You've been pocketed.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to watch out for that one. The next one is on a similar vein, soft launching.
I think soft launching is quite sweet. I quite like a soft launch. That sounds terrible.
Tell us about that one then, Gillian.
Let me tell you about the soft launch, Carole. So soft launching is where instead of, you've decided to commit to another, great, you're dating, you're moving forwards together. Instead of doing the Facebook post or the Instagram post where you're saying, dating this fabulous person, blah, 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 the love of my life, blah, 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 you just randomly insert them into again, a lot about social media. So you never, and it can also happen in real life, you never actually declare it. And there's a huge amount now, people still will always want to safeguard their privacy, but there's a huge amount now about when are you Facebook official, this sense of you're not really official until you've told the entire world. Not sure I really agree with that, and a lot of people don't. But with soft launch, They start to appear in your photographs, but you just don't mention them. They start to come to events, but you just kind of say, oh, this is so and so, and move on. And people are left thinking, hold on, So you're leaving it a little bit more of a mystery. They quite often don't get a name, so then they're not even named in these photographs. So these posts, they're just, you're swiping through. Oh, who's that? Arm around them. And you then have to go back and try and work out if there ever was an announcement, and there wasn't. But I like that idea of not having to make a big song and dance about it. But I don't know. Would you be, relationship in wanting to get it on Facebook and declare this relationship to the world for however long?
I mean, I'm not a big media, so I would. I think soft launching for me. I think it's lovely in the beginning, and also it gives you a little bit of a soft landing if you're still in the early stages where you're not entirely sure that it's you're kind of in it for the long run. It's I think I agree with you. I think it's quite nice. You're being introduced and brought along in a people know, oh, this is my friend. Let me introduce you to my friend Gillian, or people know. Especially if you're going in a social gathering with your friends, there'll be a little bit of okay, but okay, he's fought so and so along. It's obviously quite important because we've been brought into this group of good friends, or invited to join a good dinner, or or invited to a party, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So I think I'm with you. I think I'm okay with the soft launch. We'll go with that one.
So, irrespective of the word used within the lexicon of love, if you want to fall in love, if you want to find the right person for you, don't let any of this terminology get in the way, and don't stop looking for love.
Here. It's all a bit of fun. It's a bit of fun to hear what all the words being bandied around, and there are a zillion words. I mean, we've picked on a few and had a bit of fun with it. So yeah, go out there, put a smile on your face, and enjoy the world of dating. And I hope you find the one that's right for you.
Until next time. Thank you, Carole.